Hello, everybody. I'm Izzy.
And I'm Jessica.
And welcome back to The
Greatest Genre,
where today we are discussing ACOTAR chapters 37 through 41. This is part 2 of episode 8. This is our
spoiler section.
Wow, that was in real time.
That was
we
fun.
did not even prepare that. I am so impressed with us. Just a quick reminder that if you have not read all of ACOTAR, Crescent City, and Throne of Glass, you do not want to tune into this episode. So this is your final warning to exit the podcast.
You should instead use this time to read.
Yes, you quickly. Because
and then come back to us.
Releases are approaching.
Releases are approaching, yes. And we have some fun announcements coming soon about what comes next in the SJMverse for the greatest genre.
Oh my God, I'm so excited.
It's going to be great.
So quick adult content warning.
Yes, once again, and definitely in this section of the podcast, there will be adult content and adult language, like the series itself sometimes contains adult content and adult language. So if that is something that you are not comfortable with, then unfortunately maybe this is not the episode for you, but we hope that it is because we have a lot of fun stuff to unpack today.
Yes. And I think on that note,
let's just dive right in.
Let's just dive right into...
I'm going to do a cheers.
Oh, yeah.
I remember this time.
You remembered and I forgot. I don't think we did one in part 1.
I'm going to do it here.
That's right. Make up for it in the next episode.
All right.
We'll drink double.
Okay.
Chapter 37, this moment between Rhysand and Feyre.
One of many in this. This is our big...
This is the real intro to Rhysand.
Well, it's the real intro to Rhys and Feyre. Mm-hmm. This is the first time they have alone time together.
Yes, alone time.
This is the first time. Well, I guess actually it's not. They have a very brief alone moment at Calamai. Mm-hmm. But this is really...
But not really because the Picts were there. And like
right, but he scares them away. They have a very brief moment where it's just the two of them. This is a prolonged... He kind of becomes her main point of contact.
Yeah.
During this stretch, which is a marked difference from her experience in Prythian up to this point. It's been either Tamlin, Lucian, or Alice. Mm-hmm. So I wanted to talk a little bit about bargains.
And how they exist more as a whole in Prythian.
So it was interesting to me that he tells her it is custom in my court for a bargain to be marked upon your skin.
Which I don't know if it is in any other court. Do we actually get any references to bargains throughout the 5 books?
Well, it's interesting. He says it's a custom of his court, but when Nesta makes a bargain with the cauldron, she is also marked. And the cauldron doesn't belong to any court.
But Nesta is part of the Night Court, and we can't...
Is Nesta voluntarily a part of the Night Court?
Well, at that point, she's accepted her...
Nesta considers herself to be an independent.
I feel like SJM gives a lot of clues that Nesta is part of the Night Court.
Nesta is a libertarian.
An anarchist, if you will. Yeah. But I mean, at that point, she's accepted her mating bond with Cassian, and she, thrives in the Night Court, and she's accepted these people as her family.
So because she is part of the Night Court, but we think that's why she's marked.
As a whole. But we do know that in the fairy realms... bargains are not something that is to be taken lightly.
No, bargains are magical. It is it is not necessarily a bond made by two people. Mm-hmm. It is a bond that is sealed with magic. And it reminds me a little bit actually of the Unbreakable Vow, the rules of the Unbreakable Vow in Harry Potter. Because
where if you break it, you die.
Because it is sealed by magic. Mm-hmm. And as we know, in Prythian, magic loves rules. And so that you have to be very specific when you're making bargains. And she tries to be. And she
thinks she's being clever, but unfortunately, she's not practiced.
She's not practiced. And Rhys is definitely preying on her naivete here a little bit. But another detail... I think he describes it as his in. Like in the in Mist and Fury, he's like, that's how I got my in with you, was making that bargain. Because you didn't know what you were doing. So basically. He didn't just go down there to save her. He went down there because...
because he knew that she was something special to him, and he needed to make sure that.
So his motivations here were not 100% altruistic.
No.
Does he admit to the fact that he needed to beat Lucian there, or did he come when he?
I don't remember if he admits to that. I also I think that Lucian eventually makes it down to her cell. Is it a couple of days after she's made the...
It is a couple of days.
She wouldn't have survived.
She probably would have been dead.
And also, like, at this point, he already suspects that Feyre is his mate, as we know, and it causes someone physical pain to see their mate in any kind of harm.
Oh,
which
yeah.
I have to ask about the bone twisting. Was that necessary?
No, it wasn't necessary.
Like, is he just trying to scare her? Because I know that there's this whole thing that he talks about in Mist and
Actually,
Fury.
you know what? I said it wasn't necessary, but I do think Feyre would have let him walk out of the cell. Okay. She is that stubborn.
She is so stubborn.
She is that stubborn. She would have let him walk out of the cell. Now, could he have come back a day later and been like, offer's still on the table?
No, we did talk about in part 1 that she was on the brink of death. So would she have made it to day 2? Would she have made it to part 2 of this podcast?
I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. So about the tattoo itself, she says that the eye is feline. Cats. Well spotted.
Well spotted. Oh, Hermione, you're a girl.
So, anyways, cats. Adis. Prince of Hell. Is there
a theory that you found that I have no idea?
No, I searched for it. I searched
for cats in.
No, I searched. Is there a connection between Hell and the Night Court? And it is not why we just don't have much to go on because we don't know very much about Hell, but we do know that which one of them is the Star Eater? I think it might be Apollyon
of the Asteri.
No, the Princes of Hell. There's Adis, Apollyon.
Oh, I don't remember.
And then there's one other one, and he's the big bad one, and he's the one that Hunt meets, and he has leathery wings. There's so many different ways that they could all tie together.
And how many of these are red herrings?
And I've been focusing really heavily on this connection potentially between Maeve and Rhys. Mm. And we know that Maeve is actually a Valg queen, but we should not forget about the realm of Hell, which is another world, right? Like, you know,
is it another world or another universe?
There's Terrasen, there's Lunathia, Midgard, Prythian, and then Hell.
Well, Prythian is just Hell is a country in whatever world they're in.
But Hell is another world, and my wondering is that where the Valg
come from?
Because there are many within Hell, within the world of Hell, there are many.
Spelled Hel.
There are many, like, circles, many levels, right? And, like, Adis, I think Adis is the Prince of the Chasm.
Yes, he is the Prince of the Chasm. Yep.
So it was when they were talking about that feline eye, it made me think of Adis in his cat form. And then by extension, just the Princes of Hell in general, and the fact that they have that shadow power. That's where Bryce is trying to get to when she ends up in Prythian.
And is there a reason for that? Oh, I didn't even think about that.
So I'm just wondering, it's the first time that because I've been so focused on this potential connection between Maeve and Rhys, Maeve and the Night Court, the Valg and the Night Court.
Yeah, definitely worth noting
now
that
there's another avenue to consider about a connection between Hell and the Night Court.
And it's tricky because there is so much to bear in mind as you are rereading this stuff that is so not what my brain went. I just went, oh, feline. Rhys's eyes are described as feline, and his movements are described as cat-like and feline throughout a lot of this book. So that's immediately where my head went. I didn't even think about Adis, but it's important to note. Cats.
The cats in the library in Tower of Dawn.
Yes. And I forgot about that too. It looks like you're going to have to index cats in Crescent City.
So much indexing to do. The holidays are coming up. My family is going to be like, "What are you doing?"
You're like indexing
I'm having
cats?
to index many terms across the exhaustive works of Sarah J. Maas and catalog every reference made to cats and leathery wings and violet eyes and mind speaking powers. Okay, that's my list from now.
And we can always reference if you forget what it is because you have a lot to index.
Yeah, I do. I might have to maybe. Do you think ChatGPT can help me with that?
Probably.
Anyways, I mean, really, just the big overarching note that I had, spoiler wise, was that we're just getting all of the mate bond.
Oh my god, so many.
So much of it.
Like she has primal reactions to him. It's like she can't seem to stop talking to him.
She says
she can't
that her
seem
instincts,
to be afraid
right,
of him.
she was like, all the instincts that told me to be terrified of Lucian and Tamlin just don't work
exist here
around Rhys.
And also the cap on herself that she does have around other High Fae to protect herself, she doesn't seem to have around him. She can't stop the word vomit.
She contradicts him. She challenges him. She questions him. She's very fearless around him.
And of course, because we know that's because mates are each other's equals in every single way.
Exactly.
And she cannot not challenge.
Yeah.
In that capacity.
Oh, and the night before the second trial, when they're kind of like having a go at each other, not in the physical spicy way, in the verbal bantery way.
Wait, which time is this?
This is right before the second trial, and he instead of just leading her out into the party, he closes the door and he's like, your second trial is tomorrow. And she's like, oh shit. And then they have a little bit of a back and forth, and he's like taunting her a little bit and talking some shit about Tamlin. And she's like, you know what? Your court fell too. So you're one to stand here and sneer. And then she says a pained something
look
flickered across his features, and she says she wouldn't have noticed if she hadn't felt it. And it's a very brief moment, but she was like, I felt his sadness when I mentioned his court, and then he goes into his the banter is gone, the moment is broken, and he goes back to being this very cold, superior character towards her.
Character. I do think,
because actually I'm going to be a stickler about this, his court did fall.
So I did some rereading in Mist and Fury, and I guess the only court that he brought to, the only part of his court that he brought under the mountain to that fateful party where everything went down.
Was the nightmares, right?
Was the court of nightmares. And they're the only ones he would allow to come. I guess she slaughtered them, half of them, right away.
Because Rhys is so powerful?
Yeah, she basically wanted to put him in his place and be like, don't fuck with me. I am more powerful than you think I am. And so apparently he knew from that moment, when she immediately slaughtered his half of the court of nightmares, that she would never stop looking for his dishonesty and for his true motives. And so he said, this is why
about that too.
And so like I was reading it, and it was like, this is why I had to play the part so much more than everybody else did, because she was looking at me harder.
Because because he's the biggest threat to her. Mm-hmm. Because he is the most powerful one of all of them. And he knows her. He's one of the, besides Baron and Tamlin, he's one of the only ones who really knows her. And I think she had just marked him as the biggest threat right from the start.
Which, and as I was rereading this and reading some of Reddit, I was kind of getting a little bit hopping on your train, where I was like, these are supposed to be the most powerful. Like SJM does have this theme in all three of her series where she really hypes up the powers of certain individuals. And then when they are presented with situations in which they can use said powers,
they somehow seem to be thwarted.
They fall just very short. And then I started thinking, like, even in the battle scenes in ACOTAR, like, you're telling me he can't miss all these people right away, like his dad did to people? Like, he's supposed to be the most powerful High Lord in the history of everything or whatever. Yeah. And then I'm thinking, like, you're telling me that Azriel, a literal shadow singer, isn't going to find some way into under the mountain to, like, resolve some of these situations, or that Amryn isn't going to march in there and like fuck people up. And then I remember, and then I was rereading, and it was like he told them that if they were to come under the mountain, it would compromise the safety of Velaris. Because I guess in his last minutes, he wiped, including everyone in the Court of Nightmares, he wiped their memories of Velaris. So nobody knows that he
lost his power, he used, and it would take a tremendous amount of power for him to be able to do that.
I guess
I do recognize that. I do recognize that.
But like, it was just one of those like plot holes that I was like, these are supposed to be powerful people. Like, the more I read it, the more
but if they always win and nobody ever challenges them, then it's not a good story. But correct. I hear what you're saying.
I just think she shouldn't overhype it as much then sometimes.
Yeah.
Which just frustrated me slightly.
Well, you want it to be a fair...
I want it to be consistent.
You want it to be a fair split between the powerful characters kicking ass and the powerful characters really being challenged and having to fight through and, you know, an adversary or some other kind of hardship that they're presented with.
Right.
It's funny. My brother Everett has similar gripes in some of the like Star Wars or Marvel movies.
So you were about to say in ACOTAR, I was like, Everett is reading ACOTAR.
No, I would die of happiness if my brothers read ACOTAR. But my other takeaway is that I get a little bit frustrated with Amarantha actually in these chapters, because Feyre, who is, you know, a human and has only been under the mountain for, you know, 2 months, and she's been kept in her cell the entire time. Feyre is already starting to pick, like, Reese's defiance is actually kind of obvious.
Right?
And the fact
that's what we were touching on in the beginning.
and
Yeah.
the fact that Amarantha is, like, not... At the very end, she's like, all of a sudden she has this moment where she was like, you were planning this from the beginning.
And it's like, well,
It's like,
duh. I thought you were supposed to be clever. Didn't you deceive 7 High Lords?
I thought...
Or 5?
So since we're already talking about Amarantha, I'm going to go into my notes about this. So when Feyre makes the second connection with Amarantha about first, you know, oh, we're both huntresses. Then she makes the connection about their love for their respective sisters. I found myself wishing, like, it would have been so cool if somehow the undoing of Amarantha could have been real. Like, I almost wish that the answer to the riddle would have been something to do with sisterly bonds, right? And I wish that somehow Amarantha and Feyre would have had this moment where Amarantha would have experienced what Feyre is experiencing, where all of a sudden she sees herself in Feyre, and that undoes her because she hates humans so much. And she could not bear the thought of having anything in common with a human. And I found myself wishing that had developed into a more critical element of the dynamic between Feyre and Amarantha, because I do think there was so much potential for those two women as adversaries to each other. Like, I found myself kind of sad knowing that the conclusion was going to end up being Rhys and Tamlin really being the ones that kind of
I think it's because with you and with readers of this genre as a whole, sisterly and like female relationships are really what drives a lot of our love for these books, and you get so much of that in Throne of Glass, which is why I think for the true lovers of, I don't want to put words in anyone's mouth, but that is like the true favorite, I think, series of people who love her universe.
And what was so amazing in Throne of Glass was, like, of course you have these wonderful male characters who are very heroic.
But it's
Dorian and Cale and Rowan. But at the end of the day, it's the women. It is Aelin and it is Irene. And even Lysandra has sacrificed so much. The 13, Manet, like it is the women, and even like Elid's mother, like back, who sacrificed herself to save Aelin.
What's her name?
Kaltain Rompier.
Yeah,
like it is. I'm actually
getting
covered in
chills
goosebumps right now.
Exactly. And we don't really experience that in ACOTAR. Really, we get little bits of it in the first 4 books. We don't really get it until the 5th one with Nesta and Gwyn and with Emery.
I agree.
And that I agree. With that sisterly bone deep bond that they form. I'd never actually feel that. I think that they love each other.
Sarah is our good friend Sarah.
Oh, excellent friend Sarah.
Our very close, intimate, dear friend Sarah.
Yes, yeah.
She is so good at writing those bonds.
Female relationships.
And she is so good at evoking pride in, like, when I read those moments, I'm so proud to be a woman.
I know.
And even though they're not real, to feel like I am
contributing.
Like,
you were crying. I see tears in your eyes. Oh my goodness, you did it first. It wasn't me. I was texting Jess last night. I was like, I think I might cry at episode 8. And I was like, oh, are you really?
No, it's just, I think that's
it's
one of
truly,
the things that
special.
is so moving about Sarah's writing, is the way that she writes moments of triumph for women.
Mm-hmm. And to bring it back to this, it almost would have been a moment of triumph if we could have gotten that one inkling of connection between them in some kind of way, and it never happened. And I was also hoping for the full blowout like,
I wanted it to
And we
come
didn't.
down to her, and I actually, the first time I read it, I didn't. The first time I had no notes about how the way it ended.
we hadn't read everything else
the
at that
crazy,
point.
I loved the crazy showdown. I loved Rhys throwing himself into the fray. Tamlin becoming unleashed. It's incredibly exciting. Feyre's dead, but she's not dead. And like, and you're just
clear,
like, and you're
her
like,
premonition about her dying, and we were being
was
kind of
correct.
mean to her.
Yeah.
like
No,
she
she's right.
does in fact die.
yeah. And it's so exciting, and it's
Yes.
it's the way that we love the last
The
few like
100 pages of any
pages of an
SJM book,
book.
you are stressed.
You're very stressed, and it always turns out to be worth the wait and worth the angst. So the first time I read it through, I was exhilarated, and it was amazing, and the ending was, I could never have prepared myself for it. On the reread, after having read Crescent City, and like that incredible bond between Bryce and Danica, after having read Throne of Glass, where the women come to, you know, and it's Aelin and Maeve at the end, and that hero
Again,
villain
the
matchup
only time we
is
get
so
that here
crazy.
is with Nesta and Braylon.
Yes, and so on the reread after all of that, I found myself wishing that it had come down to a little bit more.
You
of
wanted
just
the big
Amarantha
bad.
and Feyre.
You wanted the big bad to be Amarantha, and in fact, it ends up being the King of Hybern.
Yeah, kind of.
I want to pivot a little bit and
Sure.
talk about the dancing. Because I went into
wait.
Mist and Fury.
Wait.
Oh no. Should we do something that's funny?
Yes.
And then something that's a little more serious?
Yes, because
Okay.
I have one that's really giggly.
Okay.
Okay,
I'm ready.
It's about Lady Autumn.
You're such a fucking simp for Lady Autumn. Okay, I'm ready. Hit me.
Okay, so I just want to say I had a fan cast idea
Oh, okay.
for the Helion and Lady Autumn miniseries.
You have been holding out on me.
Or
I'm ready.
even just like the flashback scenes. Okay.
Okay.
So, I've already said Evangeline Lilly as
Yes.
put her back in the auburn wig. Actually,
She'll do
she wore
great.
3 wigs to play Tariel, just in case you didn't know.
Okay.
And my fan cast here for Helion is purely very selfish, and I know that I've been very staunch on the whole SJM says that he's Persian, so
I'm
he must be
detecting a-
Middle Eastern.
Okay.
However,
Am I hearing a butt? I was going to say there's a butt coming here.
However, how great would it be if you put like 4 layers of spray tan on Aiden Turner?
Who is Aiden Turner?
He's Keeley.
You just want this to be a remake of The Hobbit. Oh my god.
No, I don't. I'm just saying that they had such great chemistry, and Aiden Turner is so handsome.
I mean, he is
And
very
they were
attractive.
so- and I
Jessica,
could
he
just
is
really-
too white to play Helion, and I'm sorry.
I know. Okay, I'm just saying that I had a little moment with my imagination, picturing this on the screen, and I was like, oh, what a way for the couple that never got to be. Except also they don't really get to be together.
Hey, the
Flawed.
series is not yet done.
Listen, plot hole in my fan theorizing.
There is no way that Baron makes it out of ACOTAR alive. Full 7 books.
Oh yeah, not with Eris coming for him.
No. Eris is...
I did so much. I got so off task. I think that's why my spoiler section is like maybe not as thorough as some of
That's
the-
okay,
because
because
I
we have
went
things
back
to do.
down
We
the
need-
Lady Autumn rabbit hole again because I just can't, I need more. I do. So we're gonna talk about the dancing.
Yeah, and this was, I agree with you rereading this. So like, even knowing everything we know about Rhys's true intentions in Mist and Fury, it doesn't negate the fact that it all happened. And I went forward and I found his like qualifier for it almost in chapter 54 of Mist and Fury, and it wasn't enough for me.
I don't think there is anything that can excuse this.
The only thing I can think of is that if a lot worse would have happened to her somehow, if it hadn't been
I don't
him
think it
doing
would
it.
have though.
You don't think that other people would have actually abused her, whereas this way he's like, only I can touch you. And but anyway, regardless of what it is, this is what he says. He goes, so we endured it. I made you dress like that so Amarantha wouldn't suspect. And I made you drink the wine so you would not remember the nightly horrors that happened under that mountain. It wasn't enough.
Now, I almost wish he had said, like, he had heard chatters of other
Which I think we can infer from some of the gods and the things that they wanted to do to her.
I want to infer that. I do. I want to give him the benefit of the doubt. I just need... And
I think that this is SJM's flaw and not his as a character flaw, because he would never. From what we know about Rhys, he would never. And he has always gone out on a limb to say that he has always protected.
I mean, I'm okay with the... For me, it would be okay, like, the dancing and the fairy wine. There was really no need for her to be that exposed.
That was it for me. It was icky.
There's no need. That is what really makes it sexual abuse. For her body to be fully exposed against her will. That is not okay.
So, I mean, that's kind of my main
even just
note
use,
for this
just
one.
use opaque fabric for starters. Like the fact
because
that
if it's
Lucian,
like a night, well, I guess it's like a Court of Nightmares fashion. It's even when she goes to the Court of Nightmares,
she's dressed scandalously,
but she's still
covered, right? Yeah,
exactly. So it's like, why couldn't that? I don't want to get too much into it because I think we've said what we need to say about it, and we're not happy with it. But it's like that could have been done better, I think. And I agree with you. Like, I went back to read it. I was looking for qualifiers about it, and I couldn't really find one that... I found ones that helped but didn't fully satisfy, you know?
Yeah. Well, and like I said before, it's a very controversial scene within the fandom, and I think, like, rightly so. I understand why it would be upsetting to a lot of people. It was upsetting 100%. To read.
100%.
And on the first read, I mean, you know I'm a very chaotic reader. So, like, I was just
about you.
Speeding through, like, going, like, just trying to pick out whatever important tidbits I thought. So I didn't really take the time to read about how this made her feel. Feeling like you cannot leave a situation that you are uncomfortable in.
And I think a lot of women will know exactly what that feels like.
There are very few things worse than that, except for maybe being trapped under an iron hot grate with a riddle you can't read.
Poor Feyre.
She really, she goes through it, but she's not Aelin in the box.
No. And I stand by that. Remember when I read that before you, I was like, you need to prepare yourself because I know how much you love Aelin, and nothing will ever be worse for any main character in SJM universe than Aelin in the box.
I read for the very first time like a full hate thread about Aelin.
What?
The other night. I almost sent it to you, but then I was like, I don't even want to.
We don't have time to get into that. But I
was
do
like,
want you to send it.
I was like, I didn't even know
this
that
existed.
This was a part of this community.
I found some ones on Reddit that were like, Feyre has no character growth throughout all 5 of the books, and I wanted to click on it, but squinty eyes.
Just like in comparison to other characters who have an insane
character
arc.
Exactly.
I would say that Feyre's is a little less dramatic, but I do think she has growth.
Yeah, a little bit.
She gets real cushy and high lady. That's for sure. Coming from somebody who grew up not knowing how to read in a shack.
And then I just had a funny little note that I think we already touched on briefly, but she knows deep in her bones that the third task will be the one to kill her. Like, she is correct. She objectively dies.
And how interesting that it turns out she has a sister who can see the future.
Who is the mother? Who are the Ardron sisters, really?
I must know. Sarah, please tell us.
Do you think that she'll come out with CC4 before she comes out with ACOTAR 6? That is inappropriate and rude.
No. Please. Please. I have two pleas for Sarah.
Let me guess. The Lady Autumn Helion novella.
No, listen. I mean, that's up there, but it's not pressing. I just want that someday. I don't need it, like, immediately.
Right.
The first plea is just Rune and Hunt.
Please let them be okay.
Please, Sarah, please. I'm begging you, just save them. The second plea, I need there to be some legs to this whole empty Archeron mother. Like,
it has to be. Like, the more I read about it and the more we talk about it, there is no way. Fated mate with a human?
No.
No. All of which have special powers more than regular high fae.
Her two sisters get dumped in the cauldron and they both come out with, like, insane powers. Like, most humans, I feel like, wouldn't even survive being made.
No, I fully agree.
Okay, so coming back to
chapters
discussion
37
that
through
we're
41,
having,
right.
I wanted to talk about, well, the next notes that I have are that Rhys gets very cagey with Feyre when she asks him, what have you given up to be able to roam freely? Like, that's when he kind of does that shutdown
he kind
that
of
we
shuts
talked
down.
about. But then moving forward to our first unofficial intro to Tarquin. I just wanted to take a moment to talk about Tarquin because...
And what a good person he is!
He is another person who I don't think gets anywhere near enough credit in this series. And I have to say, shame on Rhys.
I agree.
I
agree.
I'm going to do a future shame on Rhys for his treatment of Tarquin.
And to Feyre's credit,
Fury.
She gets mad at him about this too and is like, you should have been honest with him. Because she pushes for him to actually reveal his true self a lot sooner.
And in the moment, there's a moment between Tarquin and Feyre where she says, she's like, in that moment, I almost just asked him. I think if they had told him the truth and explained to him what was going on, because it's very, very clear to me.
And this is part of his main character flaw, Rhys, is that he does everything himself and he doesn't ever outsource to people to actually ask for help. He has no faith in humanity or faith.
Rhys does not have even the most basic collaborative skills.
Not even with the inner circle sometimes.
No. And that is a very, that's big toxic masculinity flag.
Which is, again,
a
theme in these books.
Going back, though, to Tarquin, who is,
hot.
in my opinion, less toxically masculine.
He's also younger.
Moment. He's younger. He's but he's just watched his father get murdered. And he is clearly still trying on his own to help, to do something. Mm-hmm. And that takes a hell of a lot of guts.
A lot of courage.
It takes a lot. And you can tell that he cares about this male who Rhys ends up having to kill. And I
wonder if that's why Rhys thinks that there will be distrust down the line, is because Tarquin has to watch him do that to a member of his court.
But Tarquin knows that when Rhys went into his mind, that Rhys knew there were more people involved, that Summer was rebelling again. Which would have been the end of probably the entire court.
Again, it goes back to that point that you made a few episodes ago. These are supposed to be incredibly small people that have been alive for hundreds of years. Why can't they have some basic deductive reasoning skills and figure out via some pretty obvious actions that...
I think it's a huge mistake born from ego on Rhys's part in Mist and Fury to make everybody lie to Tarquin. Tarquin is really the one who is the most receptive to saying, hey, things need to change. Mm-hmm. Because the reason we all got stuck under the mountain to begin with was because we didn't communicate with each other.
And to Feyre's credit, she's the one who makes Rhys eventually see that.
And the fact that Rhys,
we have notes.
I am already disappointed in his... I'm excited to reread Mist and Fury, but I also know...
Well, it'll be interesting reading it through this lens now.
It will, because I know that I'm going to be frustrated with Rhys again on multiple accounts. Specifically this one.
This is going to be a big one.
Because I believe that Tarquin is a very good leader. He seems to me...
Fair.
Based on what I know of him from remembering through the first read and what I'm seeing of him now on this first sort of reintroduction, he is actually really the only one who seems like a good leader. And so I have a lot of
blanket make
respect
that
for
statement
him.
yet because we haven't met the other High Lords. But from the three that we've met, I would take him above both Rhys and Tamlin.
He just seems like a really good guy. He seems brave. He seems... and Amarantha, he keeps it together. He doesn't lose it. That takes a lot of strength. Mm-hmm. I was just very impressed. As far as first impressions go, I think we might have a new winner.
He wins.
I think so. I was very impressed. And it's funny because on the first read,
it was a throwaway character. I don't even think that I remembered him. When I met him in Mist and Fury,
you remember.
I was
You're
meeting him.
Oh, yeah.
But it really seemed like I was meeting him for the first time.
But when I reread this sequence, I just wanted to give him a hug.
I agree with you.
It was kind of like when Lucian talked about the younglings dying in the Winter Court and now knowing that was Vivian. You know, like rereading when you meet these characters for the first time and you just, the little things that you pick up about them mean so much more because of what you know.
Yeah.
And I think that makes up for maybe the lack of excitement on the reread.
Yeah.
That, like, you lose some of that anticipation and some of the shock factor, but you gain new appreciation and value for so many small moments that you might have glanced over the first time around.
I like that observation. What did you make of Amarantha not really caring about what Rhysand was doing to Feyre during the nighttime gross part?
During the dancing?
The dancing, because he says in Mist and Fury that he made it so good for her, like with whatever power he had remaining, that
For Amarantha?
Like in a sexual sense, in bed, like he made her trust him more than she trusted anybody else with what is left of his powers. And then he flaunts Feyre in front of her after having said, humans don't mean anything to me. And it just...
Well, because I think Amarantha thought by...
Like,
because,
this is... She, like,
no, because...
He's disrespecting her and he's being his plaything.
Yeah, and it's killing Tamlin.
Even though he hasn't made any kind of like reaction whatsoever.
Yeah, but they know. She knows. And I think that as long as Feyre is being abused in some kind of way, Amarantha doesn't care.
She was just very uninvolved in these 5 chapters.
I agree. And that's why I'm kind of like, this is where Amarantha starts to fall a little bit short for me.
Yeah.
As far as
even
the
in the second task, which I expected, like on the reread, I didn't remember. I was expecting her to kind of like come back and be extra evil and do something else that was going to put me into some kind of rage, and I didn't feel that. The only relationship that she had with anyone, really the only interaction she had with anyone during the second task was with Lucien and Rhys. Wasn't even really with her. Even after the task finished, we didn't really have a conversation between them.
Right.
She just went back to her cell.
Well, and I also think it's now getting to the point where Amarantha never expected her to make it this far.
Yeah.
So I do think Amarantha is in a little bit of uncharted territory.
Yeah.
And so she might be biding her time. Maybe she's starting to suspect that Rhys is not
fully on board with,
you know, in her corner.
Well, she's not dumb. Hopefully she knows that really nobody wants her there.
But I did have a note, like, the fact that Feyre's catching on to Rhys's insubordination and nobody else seems to be noticing seemed like a little bit of a miss to me.
Although he is showing her pieces of himself that he is not showing to anybody else.
And it could be that Feyre's paying attention. Like, everybody else might have just been looking at Rhys and that, like, maybe Feyre was the only...
He's had 50 years to paint a portrait of the person that he is presenting to them all. And he is not presenting the same person to Feyre. So I do think we have to remember that.
Yeah, that's true. A quick note about the second trial. There is a moment when Feyre realizes that Lucien is chained to the floor. She looks around and she sees his brothers, but she does not see his parents. They are not there.
Does she know what Baron looks like at this point? I think she's seen
all of them because all the High Lords were present or whatever.
Well, the 4 brothers that remain, at least from what we think we know at this point, are the bloodthirsty sort, excluding Eris.
Right, but why aren't Baron and Lady Autumn there?
Could be a red herring, or it could be just something that SJM didn't.
I'm just really on a big Autumn.
You are on a big
because I think there is so much richness there and so much history there that we have yet to unfold, and especially like when we get to the next episode, like there was a huge detail that screamed out at me that I totally missed the first time, and I'm not even going to talk about it now because I want it to be a surprise. But
I haven't remembered. I wonder if I'll pick up the same
like,
thing.
Are they staying? Like, why aren't they there? Are they not there because they can't trust themselves not to show emotion with their youngest son?
That seems more something that Lady Autumn would do and not Baron.
Right. So where is Baron?
Where is Baron?
Why
being conniving somewhere?
Wouldn't Baron be like relishing this, like his son who betrayed his court?
Maybe
and
there's
turned his
something
back on it?
in. Well, no, I don't know. I don't know.
Why isn't Baron there? What is he doing?
I don't know.
Maybe he's taking a shit. Who knows? Like you said.
You gotta go.
It could be nothing.
It could be nothing.
It could be nothing. But I did, just because Feyre and by extension, Sarah J. Maas, makes a point of noting that Lord and Lady Autumn are absent, I thought it was worth noting here.
For future potential Easter eggs.
Potentially, yes.
The last note that I have, it's not really a spoiler per se, but the music that is played when she is in those depths of despair is something that she continues to hold on to throughout the rest of this series. Like, that moment I think was very, very pivotal for her.
Oh, yeah,
Like,
I would agree.
And it was Reese showing her without showing her who he truly is as a person.
No, it is a beautiful scene. You're right. It is the first time, and we don't know that that's what we're experiencing. But again, on the richness of a reread, you do understand that that's him. And isn't he with Amarantha, or like he's still like in her chambers maybe or something?
If he's with her,
but he feels that Feyre is breaking, and he's like,
and it's like the one thing that he can do to keep that from happening.
Yeah,
and it is just so, like, for all of the awful things that he does in this, we have to remember he is a morally gray character. He has good and he has bad.
Yeah, and that's what makes him so amazing to read about.
We are the ones that made us fall in love with him as a character.
His good moments are so good that they force you to justify the moments.
But that is why we are here to just keep everybody keep everyone honest.
I did have a couple of other notes going back to the second task, and like shortly after the second task when Reese comes to her cell and she is like not having any of it. It was giving a little bit of Rowan and Aelin to me.
Oh my God.
And she is just so
fucking stubborn.
Disgusted with him. She's so stubborn. He's being so antagonistic to her. I was like, somebody throw a punch. And then I did want to give a quick shout out for, we have our shadow daddies, but our shadow baddies.
Okay.
Nuala.
We need to talk about, I actually have a note about them too. Is that how we pronounce them? Did you look it up? Nuala? That seems obvious.
Nuala, Caradwyn.
It's Caradwyn?
Yes.
I thought it was Saradwyn. So that's wrong.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's Caradwyn.
Caradwyn. Okay. Yeah, they come in so clutch, especially also in Mist and Fury. And they
oh my God, do they remind you of the Patil twins? Is that who they make you think of?
Or no, I was still thinking of the Hogwarts ghosts. They can go through walls.
Yeah, but the way together, she was like, what was that? And they both go, trouble. It reminds me of Pavati and her sister going, hi, Harry.
Pavati. I can't think of who they remind me of, but there is a certain character duo in some sort of fantasy film or book that I have read that reminds me of Nuala and Caradwyn.
I'm excited to spend more time with them. I found some really cool fan art of them, actually, that I want to post.
I saw some, too, that's been popping up.
Yeah.
Especially the way they take care of, like, I think that they become almost sources of comfort for her, especially in Mist and Fury. It's...
When she meets them again for the first time, is it awkward at all? Like, I can't remember.
I think it's just like, oh, these two again. When she first comes back to the House of Wind.
But is there a moment where she's like, okay, we're not doing the body paint?
I don't know.
Okay?
No, there isn't.
Because if it were me and I saw them again, I'd be like,
I don't think she's expected to do body paint when she arrives at the House of Wind.
I'm going to stop you right there because we're not doing the body paint thing. It's not happening.
When they painted more intimate parts of her. What were they doing? Literally painting her vagina and her tits?
I don't have an answer for you. Yeah, I think the only other note that I had was to go back to the conversation that we were having about Amarantha's powers. We do get confirmation that she does need spells and potions to channel her magic. But it is implied that the King of Hybern does not need those things.
Right.
Which is interesting because when we talked about it last episode, we were saying that he also seems to need those things with his spell book and the cauldron. Like, he's a big fan of using the cauldron.
And this is somewhat of an inconsistency, I think, because even in
I
ACOTAR...
have to reread because I don't remember the specifics of how his power is described.
Fair enough.
And that's why I'm noting it, because as we go on this reread journey, like, I'm trying to take more detailed stock of everything we
Especially
learn
the
about these
rules
characters
and the world
and the
building.
rules of the magic. Yes, exactly. I did think it was interesting that in this moment, this vision of the music that he sends her, the conclusion it eventually leads her to is that
I'm
she's
still
in love
going
with
to die.
Tamlin. No, she's like, oh my god, the music
Well, at
reminded
that
me of
point-
the green of Tamlin's eyes and the golden of his hair, and like all of a sudden she's like just really hearing all
And,
this
like, a
beautiful
Moonstone
music,
Palace.
this beautiful music from Reese, and it's making her think of Tamlin, and it's like, oh damn, that's
So close.
that's tough.
Well, I think also
For
at that
Reese.
point, it's the only it's the only kind of love that she's ever felt in her life, and she has a note about that in Mist and Fury. She's like, I think that
so mad. Like, I'm so not excited to read this next little like moment between her and Tamlin. Because
annoying.
when I read it through the first time, it was like so thrilling and I was like, oh. And
he
now
just couldn't help himself, and now you're angry.
and now I'm like, you mother. And I'm like, do something. Lucian would do something.
Lucian would do many things because Lucian is always 10 steps ahead.
Oh my god, that just made me think of Game of Thrones when Daenerys asked Missandei what happened between her and Grey Worm, and Missandei goes, many things. And on that note,
I think we should wrap it up. We are going to give you a quick reminder of our handles so you can go follow them. And also, if you feel so inclined, you should leave us a review on Apple Podcasts,
a rating,
Spotify.
anywhere you want. You could
or
also
YouTube.
share us with your fellow SJM girlies. and
I find
guys.
like a new one every week where I'm like, do you know that we have a podcast called The Greatest Genre, which will change your life?
If we do,
It will
say so
guarantee
ourselves.
many giggles. So you can follow us on Instagram at _greatest genre, on Twitter at greatest genre. We are on TikTok at the greatest genre. Please email us at thegreatestgenre@gmail.com. We will have our Linktree updated, hopefully with an upcoming Etsy page. Shop for some merch.
Merch. It's exciting stuff.
It's going to be t-shirts, sweatshirts, and bookmarks, I think, right
Yes.
off the bat.
Yep. And then one other final note, and we'll do a separate post about this, but it's our final episode coming up
my
of
God.
season 1, which is insane.
A year ago, we were like, should we do a podcast?
I know. I remember. I don't even know. A year ago, I was finishing.
No, I think you'd
Glass.
finished Throne of Glass near the end of this. I think it was like August, because in June you were reading.
I was reading Air of Fire and Queen of Shadows. in June.
Exactly.
Okay.
So, you were definitely done in July
Yeah, that's
or
fair.
August, and then we
Anyways.
wouldn't shut up about it. And then someone was like,
So
"You
yeah, it
guys
was
should
probably
just."
right around a year ago. Very exciting stuff.
I know.
So we have one more episode of thematic discussion. And we are going to do a special episode dedicated to fan casting.
Yeah.
Because we are still holding out hope for the Hulu show.
It is not yet lost.
Yes, hope is not lost. So please, please, please send us your fan cast ideas. We want to do a whole episode dedicated to who we think would
we
be.
could, Jessica. We might fight during that episode.
That's fine. I don't think we'll fight.
No, just disagree in a really friendly way.
Okay. About what?
I just think that you and I have different fan casts for certain characters, but I think we have very aligned fan casts on others. But we digress.
I don't think we're going to do the Bat Boys yet, though, because it's just
It's
for
too-
ACOTAR.
It's too much.
And also, that would take way too long.
Well, one of the bad boys is an ACOTAR, so we'll have to.
Oh, well, Reese, yeah. Well, Reese, yes, would be included in the fan cast episode, but Cassian and Azriel, I don't think will be.
All right. So on that note, thank you so much if you are still with us. We super appreciate you, and we cannot wait to be back with you in 2 weeks for episode 9 of A Court of Thorns and Roses, the final 5 chapters. We will see you guys next time.
Thanks so much.
Bye.